There was a game in 2014 that I made called Hypnospace Enforcer, which was a very small 15-minute game, maybe. And I made it because I was working very hard on my game at the time, which was Dropsy, and I was getting burnout a little bit. So I started working on Hypnospace Enforcer as a side project so that I could have fun working on a game again because the game I was working on was just work, work, work. So that is where the concept of using a headband at night while you're sleeping to access the internet, that's where that came from. And at the time it was a little there's a phrase that they used in the 90s a lot that was information superhighway to explain to people what the World Wide Web was. So that game kind of took the concept of information superhighway and made it into like a little game where you're a car, on like a highway. And then as I moved on from that first project and wanted to make a new game, I decided to make a full game out of the idea. So this game started as that highway game at the beginning, and then the operating system parts where you browse the internet, that was only going to be a smaller piece of the game. And then as we kept developing it, people online just liked the look of the fake operating system more, and we were having more fun making the operating system and making the web, the fake World Wide Web. So the game sort of went from a twitchy car game and with a little operating system to mostly being an operating system with a little bit of the car game in it. Yeah, I mean, we weren't very disciplined and we didn't have a very good plan. We just made tools. Like we made a page builder to make all the pages, and we made a music sequencer. And then we just started making a big fictional internet. And then about a year and a half into it, we did put a few little mechanics in, like you can hammer things on a page if they're illegal. But at that point, we had a very large fictional internet, but there was no gameplay progression at all. So we iterated on it and we just figured out how to stick a game in there. And so the best way to do it, I think, was a detective game. Yeah, because really what you're doing is just reading lots of people's profiles and the content they put online. So it naturally evolved that it became a detective game, I suppose. We had that team of basically me, another writer, and a programmer. That was the core team. But we did have a few things where I would be designing a part of the game, and I handled most of the art and audio. As we progressed, I would be like, okay, does anyone online know a person who can make like a fake Linkin Park, like who is into like 90s new metal or something? And then people would say, hey, I think this guy could do this, or this person. A lot of the content was just me putting on Twitter, can someone make a really stupid looking smiley face icon or something? And then I would just PayPal them. So I got a lot of, I would say about 30 or maybe 40% of the content in the game is just other people's stuff that they did, and then I would PayPal them. And I think that helped it feel like a lot of the stuff is just not one person making all of it, because it really was just some people online. I developed pipelines for all of the content. So when anyone would send me a song, or I would make a song, or send me art, or even some of the video files that we have in there. For images, audio, and videos, I developed a way of processing them that would give them consistency. So for video and images, I would take the frames of a video and export them at 10 frames per second into image files. And then I would take all of those image files and color reduce them for the game, so that using this dithering that was popular on, in CD-ROMs back when people had to do 256 colors. And with audio, we used an old MP3 codec from 1999, and then I ran it through that at like about 64 kbps or something really low like that. And then I exported that back to WAV file and then to OGG file that we used in the game. So all of the assets in there were edited by me to make them fit fit together and feel like they belong together a little bit. Like, because we had some rules, like no referencing any real culture or celebrities or anything named that's real, and no technology like smartphones or anything that exists out after 1999. So a few rules. I think mostly what worked was our visual processing and to give it all that sort of crusty, like dithered web look. There's, squishers, which most people can tell it looks a little like Pokemon, but even that we tried to mix, like they're all slimy and gooey. They're not quite like Pokemon. But yeah, everything else, I just wanted it to have like a spirit or a feeling of something else, like Chowder Man. He's just kind of like there's a story that's repeated many times in culture of like an alcoholic rock star who is not popular anymore, that kind of thing. And so we just made our own version of that. Yeah, I think that, like I said, we made a lot of content. We made this fake internet full of characters. And I think I cared the most about the smaller stories that you find. And at the end of development, we made the story with Merchantsoft, the company that made Hypnospace, sort of how their system updates and how their company runs can have an effect on the users of Hypnospace. We put that story in later, but most of the stories that came in first, the ones that I put the most work into, were just the smaller stories within the zone. So like Teentopia, you had some of the kids who didn't like each other, and they had some spoilers, I guess, but they had some fake girlfriends, and in Good Time Valley, there's the fish with copyright infringement where you have to remove the fish, but then the people start to revolt because they want to use their fish, I guess. So those little stories, I don't know, I felt like they were the most important because, I don't know, I think the game tries to focus on these individuals, and like maybe you'll look at their page and you'll think, oh, I know this kind of person, but you can read something about them in there that gives them some complexity. Or something, everyone has something interesting about them outside of maybe what your first impression is of them. So I thought that was a fun thing, and maybe even like an important thing to try to communicate. Some of them are based on real people that I know. I do find them all charming. They're like my little children now, I guess. Even Zane. I mean, he's a jerk, but I don't know, because I felt like maybe some of them are supposed to be me when I was a kid, because I wasn't as bad as Zane when I was in high school. There was a little bit of me in there. Some of these characters are definitely from my past experiences with myself. Like also Corey in Teentopia, some of his journal entries in his little diary on his page are actually pasted from my old live journal that I had, and it was very pathetic, but I just changed a few details so that you couldn't Google it. But some of those posts were my real live journal entries. I don't know if I did like the cool punk area the most. I think that was the most fun to write, because also I could make a lot of music for it and then make people listen to my music. So I don't know, I liked that part maybe the most in terms of writing. Music's probably my favorite thing to like do, creative thing to do, because even when I'm working on it for a game, it feels like there's not as much pressure. It's just something that I just enjoy doing, like the process of making music. And when I'm working on a game, it feels more like work. Like I have a big list of all kinds of things I have to finish in a short amount of time. But with music, I'm just, it's kind of freeing or something to work on. But music, is very hard to get people to listen to. There's so much of it. So I think I felt like in a small way that this game was a way to get people to listen to some of my music because they're playing a game with it. So I'm forcing them to listen to my music now. It has to be political, I suppose, because you have these people who I think sometimes the last thing on their mind is the person who actually has to use their product while they're making it. Sometimes it's they want to do something cool or make something ambitious, and sometimes it's just for money, like it's like a business thing. But I think both of those, sometimes you can glorify technology in a way and not think about what it's doing to people, even as you're trying to improve the experience of it. I think the game kind of explores what even seemingly small changes to some technology can do to people, and sometimes people are left out. Like, you notice there was probably like the 30-day free trial, and then when your free trial of Hypnospace runs out, you get another 30 days, and then after that your page is just deleted from existence or something. So it also explores how people with fewer resources, with not as much money in this case, like they just cease to exist on the internet. So yeah, it definitely got some political stuff in there, and you know, I think it would be disingenuous to say that it does not. Yeah, it's mostly like it was in the GeoCities or Angel Fire era, where they contextualized it as if it was like a place you were settling or you were colonizing or something, like a new country, and you can go and have your own homestead there. And so I think because of these kinds of metaphors, like you have your little house there, people just felt like, okay, I'll share, I have a blank page, what do I do with it? And like, I think even in GeoCities, most people thought, like, welcome to my cave, or welcome to my Bob's Dragon Castle, I don't know. And so it was, everyone always used these place metaphors, so it felt like you were going into their house or something. So I wanted to play with that, like, it was all very personal. And there are some things on there, like the free lands, for example, where people try to change that a little bit and make it something bigger or different. And I think Merchant Soft, also the company that runs it, wants to keep everything like they don't want a big Wikipedia to appear. Like if there was going to be a Wikipedia, then they would want to create it, and I think they would try to stop it in some way if someone tried that. So yeah, I think you're right. It's all very like personal. It almost is like social media, like what you're saying, because brands have their own pages as well. But yeah, not much else is happening there. Oh yeah, that's true. Those do work together. Yeah, I thought that was very interesting back then, because like if you look at early pages, like in 1994 or 1995, they were trying. Everyone had their own, like, oh, this is like go to page 5, and some people would structure it like a book almost, like where their website was just started on the title page, and then you just have to click through it to get to the end as if it was a book. So it was a real interesting time where people just didn't know what they were doing on a page, and now we have a little more of a consistent idea of what to expect. But I thought that was interesting to play with too. We do have some more updates coming. So we do want to make a sort of a creative update, because we did release our tools. So we have a page builder and the music sequencer, and we want to make a way. This is kind of complicated because we don't want people to abuse it, but we want to make a way for people to make their own pages to share, you know, or make their own network of pages even. So you could load in someone else's internet or something, web, whatever you call it, that they made. And so we're working on that now. Like maybe we'll do it through Steamworks or something. And we also want to allow people to load in mods, because right now you can go into the game files and actually edit everything. You can even edit all of the images. There's nothing is hidden. So you can just go into all the directories and change the game. But so we are working on an update. Maybe this summer it'll come out, for allowing people to make their own things if they want with our tools. I don't know why anyone needs a second internet, but there you go.